I love Monster Hunter. I've loved the series ever since it was first released on PS2 over 14 years ago. That little bit of footage was just something random I had on my system when I first started playing Monster Hunter World on PS4 a few weeks back. We'll get to why I have screen caps and photos and stuff later, but as a huge fan of Monster Hunter, I have actually done some Monster Hunter cosplay and props. A lot of my crafty background is, in fact, in cosplay and prop making, not so much tiny sculpture. It just so happens that a lot of those skills kind of play together. But that was a while back. Maybe I'll do a video about that sometime later, but for now, I want to kind of talk about my next project, the future. More specifically, I want to build something for Monster Hunter World. I've got about 60 hours in the game right now, and I'm still debating on which armor set or weapon I want to build. I'm probably going to be building some kind of gun lance because I love the gun lance, and some of the designs are actually somewhat more cosplay friendly. That's something I might get into later. The armor sets, though, it's tough to choose, and no matter what I choose, it's likely going to be a very arduous process involving about a dozen different kinds of crafting skills, because Monster Hunter armor is just kind of so wonderfully complex in the combination of cloth and leather and armor and all kinds of little details. So while I was checking out the various armor sets, trying to decide what I want to build or what's within my skill range or what techniques I could use on these different armors to actually build them. And then I noticed a certain detail that's actually repeated and present on all armors. It's the Scoutfly lantern. It's a unique, distinct little accessory that's hanging off the belt of pretty much every armor. And it's also kind of a central mechanic in Monster Hunter World, which serves an important purpose. So it's something that, obviously, if you're going to build a good Monster Hunter costume, you need to have a Scoutfly lantern. Or at least you should have a Scoutfly lantern. With that in mind, I started thinking, how could I build this thing? What materials would I use? What would be the easiest way to do this? And with the standard Scoutfly lantern, the caged one, there's essentially two main parts that make up the cage: the rings and the outer walls, I suppose you would call them. And I started thinking, well, if I'm going to be making several of those, I may as well just make a mold and cast them. Like, well, if I'm going to cast all these parts, I may as well try and make a mold for these other parts. And it occurred to me, like, if I'm going to be making a bunch of resin castings anyways, I could maybe do some kind of kit. But that's getting ahead of myself. Kits are a maybe. I need to actually first build this thing. But of course, before you can start building, especially in projects like this, you need to start gathering reference. In previous projects, it was kind of a matter of just sort of getting a feel for how I wanted it to look and then making it that way, which is what I did with the gondola figurines, which I've spent the past few days working on, and why this video is a little bit later than usual. But back onto the topic at hand, reference is fairly important when you're building something from an established series or a game or an anime or whatever. Art books and official materials are usually a good way to go, but in the case of video games, screen caps are usually going to be your bread and butter, because game models are consistent and they don't change from frame to frame as they might in an anime series. Because of that exact reason, a lot of people have actually turned to ripping the game model from the game files to have like a direct, easily viewable 3D reference of a whole armor set or a whole character, so you can see all of the little inner workings. Since Monster Hunter World is currently just on consoles, that's not really an option. I'm sure when the PC version comes out, people will be ripping every single armor set, and you'll probably see a lot of like Pepakura model kind of stuff. I haven't messed with that. If I ever do, I'll probably make a video about it. Although if you aren't aware, Pepakura is a program that breaks up a 3D model into a printable papercraft design of sorts. People use it in conjunction with like fiberglass resin to essentially make a real-life version of a 3D model scaled up to their proportions. It's a very popular thing to do with like the Halo armors. But back to the topic at hand. With Monster Hunter World, it's actually fairly easy to get all the reference you need for the various armors, and then use that to calculate your scale and do all that without having to export the model and break it up and do all that Pepakura stuff. When you're in the workshop or when you're in your hunter's private quarters, you can go to your armors and rotate your hunter around and take a good look at them. Take a screen cap from all different angles, with or without certain weapons or certain pieces of armor on, so you can get a good look at all of them individually. And then you can actually load those onto a USB flash drive and get those in a whopping 3840 by 2160 resolution, which is a little excessive, honestly, but the more detail, the better. If you do have a PS4 Pro, there's an option that lets you set the game to either prioritize graphics, resolution, or frame rate. I'm actually not entirely sure if that's just for the Pro, but anyways, I haven't noticed that making a huge difference with like the detail of the textures and everything, but it's something to keep in mind when you go to start taking your screen caps if you do have that option. And just a note for PS4 owners, if you do want to transfer screen caps from your system to a flash drive, first off, make sure it's a USB 3.0 drive. Make sure it's formatted to the FAT32 file system, and then just plug it into your system. If everything's right, you shouldn't get an error message. If the flash drive's not compatible or if the formatting is wrong, it will tell you. But if everything's fine with your attached flash drive, you shouldn't get any message at all. And then you can just go into the capture gallery, select the game with the screen caps you want to copy over, press the options button, and select the copy to USB storage device, copy over all the stuff you want, and you're good to go from there. It'll actually create the folders and everything that you need. Although, if you don't have the proper kind of hardware to do this, you should be able to post screen caps to social media and then download them through there. Don't know if it adjusts resolution, but that's also an option if you ever need to harvest your reference images from a video game you're playing or enjoying. With all of that out of the way, there's still going to be certain issues with trying to get like a good angle on certain parts of the armor, as rotating your character in front of the armor box doesn't really allow you to zoom in all the way. What you could do is move your character into a well-lit area and try and wiggle the camera up against a wall or something so it angles into just the right way so you can get a better look at the thing you're trying to look at. In my case, say the Scoutfly lantern. But there is actually one more trick for getting really good, really zoomed in screen caps for the things you're trying to get reference of. All you have to do is go into the menu and flip over to the guild card section and select edit. If you haven't messed with this before, the guild card is something you can send to other players so they'll have your information and you can more easily team up with each other later on. But it also gives you the option to like set a pose and kind of set the camera angle, and you're probably seeing what I'm getting at. So what you can do is flip through these different poses and zoom the camera all the way in to see your armors from different angles and in different poses than what they would normally be in. So you can say, for instance, see like on the underside of the arm or the sides of the armor that would normally be covered by the neutral pose in Monster Hunter. Additionally, the lighting in the guild card section is a little bit brighter and clearer, so you can get like good consistent kind of coloration on the things you're trying to look at. And for me, it gave me a lot of great angles to really get a close-up look at the Scoutfly lantern, which I couldn't do in the equipment change menu or at the workshop. And even though the textures do look a little bit muddy this close up, you can really kind of tell all the little things they were going for. Like the rim around the Scoutfly lantern is actually supposed to be kind of a leather-bound thing, which some people have noticed. And it's actually kind of affixed on a swinging hinge on the belt, if you can kind of see it from the underside. And just stuff like that is it takes the guesswork out of it for one, but it also informs how you're going to go about actually building something like that, both in a realistic and a practical way. because of course this isn't going to be realistic. It's going to be made of plastic and hot glue and whatever else I have laying around. However, at this point this video is already running a little bit long, so I think I'm going to break this up and I'm going to try and do another video very soon on the design process. But hopefully for you budding Monster Hunter cosplayers, you new fans to the series who are eager to start building armor like this, you find these tips very useful, and this helps you along your way to building better armor, and hopefully the future videos I do will also be informative. So, until the next video, thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe and do all the social media things and leave comments and questions, and till next time.